Adventure Ho Illumineers, and welcome back to another episode of the DuckTale Dads. I'm one of your hosts, Nathaniel, joined in person by our other two DuckTale Dads, Mack and Ryan.
First ever
in person for all of us.
It only took us 11 months to do it. Sweet.
Love it.
Yeah, life of dads, right?
Mm-hmm. Is that the truth?
Well, thank you for joining us. The reason we are in person tonight is we just had a little bit of an in-home at Ryan's home. Sealed night, super fun. Well, I'm sure we'll get into that as part of our What's New in Your World. So let's kick it off with that. And Mac, what's new in your world?
Yeah, a lot of it has to deal for me non-Lorcana related. So more into my bathroom demo at home. That I kind of, before we jumped on, alluded to that before we started playing Little Lorcana tonight. I think everything is now down to the studs, so we can start putting it back together, which is super exciting. The other thing that we did is we took a page out of your book, Nathaniel. We finally went sledding this year.
Yes.
It finally snowed, again, a decent amount after like a week of everything melting. And my boys loved it. They were running up and down the hill for a consistent 2 hours, so they had a blast, and it made bedtime a lot easier for us at home. But yeah, we went with some friends, had a good time. Perfect weather, 25 degrees, so not too windy. So we had a blast doing that. Other than that, it's been a lot of trying to collect the winter spell cards that'll fit into hopefully a viable red-blue deck. So that's where I'm at for what's new in my world. Yeah, it's a lot of good fun, and I'm excited to chat about what happened at Sealed. Oh, but first, who wants to go next?
I can go next. I'll go next. So yeah, much like Mac, we had observed the fact that like 95% of the snow in our yard melted, and we were like, oh my gosh, could it be? Like, of course, me as the, excited one is like, oh my goodness, spring in February, and my wife is like, don't be fooled. Naturally, I was fooled. And immediately, like, after everything had melted, got dumped on with a bunch more. But then we went outside, and funny you mentioned this because, like, the last couple of days being really nice, I went out with my oldest, and I remember thinking to myself, man, I'm, like, really cold right now. And I looked at my watch, and it was like, oh, it's 13. And I go inside, my wife goes, I'm surprised you guys were out that long. The feels like temperature is -4. And I'm like, that explains that.
Yes.
But like my child of winter is like, I'm good. Let's go back out for another hour. And it's like, maybe warm up a little bit. But yeah, so that's been fun. Trying to the last gasp of winter, right? I'm actually going skiing soon, so I actually took out my skis, and I'm excited to try that out. Hopefully the weather cooperates this weekend, so I get to enjoy that. Otherwise, same thing. Winter spell is interesting. I think I've been surprised by some of the cards, so that's kind of exciting. And having so much fun with Sealed, I think it's such a fun, different way to play the game, and I think there was some emphasis on the syllables. No, on sorry, bad dad joke, but they had said that there was some sort of an emphasis on Sealed being a focus with this set, and certain cards they were printing, and I didn't totally buy it after our first Sealed night, but after playing tonight, I think I saw a few things where it was like, hey, you know what? That was really fun and Sealed. I think it would be buns in Constructed.
Yes.
So that was made for this experience, and it's been fun to kind of see some of those things come out, and that happens with repetition and being able to do a couple events, right? You learn from the first ones, and you just pull different cards, right? Because you only get 6 packs, so you're not going to see that much of the set. Ryan, what's new in your world?
New personal-wise, we are getting better. We actually moved them both into the same room to sleep now, which was a huge change. And it went great. Our toddler was feeling lonely many nights prior to the move, and now just having another human in the room with the littlest, even though there's nothing they can do to comfort the toddler, they slept through the night just fine. But since then, I think we caught a little bit of a respiratory cold, so that's not been going great, because then they both wake up when one of them wakes up, but we'll navigate that eventually, I'm sure. You guys have already been through it, and so I'll probably be reaching out with some questions and try to how to figure that out and make sure that they both go to bed and sleep through the night. That's obviously goal number one. On a Lorcana front, I thought I was done pulling Sealed product, and then we're like, hey, we're going to do a Sealed night. And I was like, okay, great. Now we have this great deal I have to say no to. So ultimately I was not able to say no to the great deal and picked up another trove for myself. And my wife decided that she wanted to use some of her spending money as well to buy another box. So we're now that upstairs to go pack rush with the rest of this week. I have a lot more cards to log as a result of our Sealed night and the trove that I opened. Dare I say I had the pull of the night, fellas?
We're so shocked.
Let's get into that. What is that about?
So this is the first time it's ever happened out of a trove for me, but it was like the third to last pack I think I was opening, and I will, for the record, my toddler did touch the packs prior to me opening them, even though it was
Blessed
obviously
it
it's a
with
trove.
luck.
Yeah. We'll get in a little bit more into the how lucky my toddler is a little bit later. Mack has a great connection to it now too. Anyways, in the trove, I was able to find my way into another enchanted for this set, and I was ecstatic. I was so excited. I pulled an enchanted Raging Storm, which was
That's
beautiful.
a good one.
It's a beautiful card. It is somewhat meta relevant potentially. And yeah, it looks great, and I was really excited to pull that with all the fellas here. Being able to pull it with friends close by to celebrate with you is always way better than pulling it by yourself and alone in your basement when you're the only one that knows that this is really exciting, which was the first enchanted I pulled back in Azurite Sea. But yeah, so now that makes the total of 3 enchanteds for this set out of the sealed product that we pulled, which I think we're a little bit ahead rate on the expected rate of enchanteds. Excited, pumped about it. And that was probably the pull of the night. Even though my sealed pull wasn't exactly what I was looking for, still was able to make competitive deck out of it, but not the cards that I was looking to see. I saw 0 Lumpies, and I saw 0 Amos Slade, and I saw 0 Slushies. So if that's a key or a hint at how medium mid my sealed pool was, that is the end all be all of it.
Yeah, I think the true win, though, of the night was you, shouted when you opened that enchanted.
You got it!
And the true win is that you did not wake any of your family members because at that point everyone else was asleep and it was just us hanging out in the basement. So kudos to that, I guess. But yeah, 3 enchanteds in 5.5 boxes. I think we did the calculation this set. So you're definitely on a heater for this for Winter Spell. To your point, though, I took advantage of that.
Yeah. Yes, you did.
When I walked into your house, knowing that the heater your family has been on. I went to your toddler and was like, I need you to pick the 6 packs for me. And she did. She obviously picked just the top 6 ones. But out of the 6, the first 2 that I opened were 2 epics. So that was really cool. And she was right next to me and obviously doesn't really know because she's little. But we were all shouting and she was very happy. She had a big grin on her face. So it was very exciting to pull the epics and at least get some good heat out of it. And then I did pull 1 legendary, the Donald Duck. I forget what the flavor text is.
Fred Honeywell.
Fred Honeywell, yeah, that's right. And did not ultimately end up using it because I did not pull a single boost card tonight to really assist in that Donald Duck usage, in that ability. But overall, I think out of the packs that I opened, the 3 ones were the 2 epics. As well as the Donald Duck, and I utilized the Donald Duck in a trade tonight, right, Ryan? So
that is right.
To fill in some of my play sets.
It did change hands.
But you also had a pretty good pack luck too tonight, Nathaniel.
Yeah, I do also want to note, I watched as the toddler grabbed the packs. She didn't just do 2, 2, and 2. She did the top row and then 2 from each of those 2, or she did 3 down on one of them. So it wasn't what you would normally think of, just grab some off the top. So I was kind of watching okay, maybe that's the key. But yeah, I think that was crazy to go 6 packs with 2 epics. And I will say this too, the epic Tiana support.
Yeah.
It looks so good.
It looks so good. I thought I almost thought for a second it wasn't enchanted because the top half just had so much pop to it.
Particularly the lanterns in the background on the top, they really pop off the card. And I thought it was exceptional. Exceptional the way they foiled it.
Yeah, that I couldn't stop looking. I was oh my gosh, that's just an epic. You could have convinced me it was enchanted if you covered the bottom half of the card. So that was super cool. I pulled so I did, out of my 6 packs, I did get a foil Ohana Means Family, so that was cool. I got to use it a couple times during the matches.
How many cards did you draw off it? What was the max?
I think I drew
5
once.
Yeah.
Wow, that feels good.
Yeah, it feels really good.
You lost that game, but it felt great.
I lost that game, but it did. It was I'm going to do the thing, and Mack was just laughing as I'm grabbing all these cards off the top because he was going to win the next turn.
Yep.
But it did have some value in some other games too, where I was able to draw a few. Yeah, it's a cool card. One of the better pulls I've had for sure of the set. I've only opened 16 packs, so I haven't even opened 1 box worth. Yeah, that one was sweet, and then probably nothing else that would really pop off the page, but I will definitely take that out of 6 packs. That's a pretty good one.
Mm-hmm. To set the stage, though, at the time when we were opening our packs, that was the card of the night. right, was the foil Ohana Means Family,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, for sure.
I thought someone else pulled. There was an Angel pulled. Connor pulled Angel.
Yes, he did.
So those were kind of the two ones. Like, wow, that's a pretty good night. 2 epics, got a foil legendary. We had an Angel amongst the group, right? In
2
this
foil
one.
legendaries, because I had a foil Tinkerbell too.
True, and that was out of 1 box.
Well, yours is from your trove.
Trove,
True.
yeah.
So
Yours is
like
separate.
overall, it was good for the amount of packs that we opened. But then the Enchanted was pulled actually between rounds, I guess we'll call it. You kind of just opened a pack, and it was like between the 3rd round.
Yeah, periodically throughout the night, I was trying to make my way through the trove that I had purchased. So
And that's when that was pulled. But that was really fun. But to your point about the Tiana, and I think by extension, this Raging Storm, one thing that I've been more and more impressed with over the course of these last 2 or 3 weeks since Winter Spell has been released, I've really enjoyed the bright artwork that this set has. And it's perfect contrast to what Whispers was, because Whispers was super dark. And I've become to really enjoy how thematic and lore that Ravensburger has come to present these sets. It's been really fun, like, and these ones specifically, the swirls in the Raging Storm is amazing, and then even to the Tiana, you mentioned the lanterns. I don't know, it's really cool seeing them in person. As much of like meta relevance this set might be lacking in terms of overall cards that will be added to what we anticipate being the meta field. The artwork is still there, and I think that's what makes it, to your previous point, like their emphasis on limited. I think that's what makes it fun, is you're still opening a lot of fun cards in what they emphasized in a limited format. I think that's just something I've noticed over the course of the last couple of weeks that's been really cool about this set.
Yeah.
And I hope they continue it.
Yeah, and I think one thing, on that note about the artwork being really special and popping off the cards, I think in order to do that justice, I really hope that Ravensburger does take a look at quality control on the cards, because I mean, I know I was like, what the heck is this? But like, I had a foil card that had been like snapped on the edge, and like there's like a chunk coming out of the card.
Yep.
And we noticed a lot of cards, particularly some of the foil ones too,
Off-centered.
very, very like off-centered to a point where it's like it almost looks like some of the continuous art stuff, right?
Yeah.
But it's not one of the continuous art cards. It's just so far cut off to the side. And we did notice some of that at our first sealed night back during the pre-release weekend. But I think it just kind of shows like it's such a stark contrast, right? Like artwork looks amazing, but the actual card, the physical cardboard, is not in the best shape ever. So maybe we want to make sure those two things align. I hope that that's something we take a look at, because we've obviously seen the foiling difference, right? The full foil card versus the old cold foils. They do not age particularly well. No. The foiling on some of the newer sets. So I hope that is taken into consideration. Obviously, it's going to happen when you're printing thousands and thousands of cards. It's not all going to be perfect, but it does seem like a higher rate than what is usually acceptable has kind of been coming out like, well, that looks funky. Luckily, your Enchanted looked great. Your Epics looked great.
Yes.
The foil Ohana was great. So I guess the ones that mattered, they're good. So for what that's worth, at least.
Yeah. Mack, you brought up a good point of potentially lacking in meta relevance for the whole of the set. I think that I wanted to touch on one thing related to that. One thought that I've had over the past couple of weeks, past month now, since we've had the reveals for Winter Spell finish, is just that the fact that I agree that in the current format and the current metagame, there are some very impactful cards, but not on the whole. Like we saw, obviously, in Fabled with the reprint set and everything, rotation, huge amount of impactful cards in that set. Same with with Whispers, where it's the first like full new set after the rotation. I think what is unique for Winter Spell is that looking forward to 2 sets from now, when next rotation comes through, for the core constructed metagame, I think there's going to be a ton of meta relevant cards that are from Winter Spell that are not going to be played a lot until next rotation comes, when they cut off a bunch of the sets 5 through 8 cards from the core constructed metagame. One in particular that I have in mind is Colors of the Wind. Great efficient draw song, but it's just not efficient enough in current format, really. I'm sure somebody will crack it and absolutely break that card this set at some point. But looking forward, I think it becomes a huge staple once a lot of the pre-rotation card draw options are rotated out. and we see kind of how the metagame shifts. I think it becomes one of the premier efficient card draw options in the future.
And unbelievable in multiplayer.
Yeah, incredible in multiplayer. Draw 4, maybe 6.
Yeah, as popular as that format is. But to your point about that specific card, it worked really well for you tonight.
Yes, it did.
I pulled it at our first sealed night, and it worked really well for me there. I think to your point, though, about rotation and looking back on this set and kind of the viable cards that might pop out of it, with that card in particular, you had mentioned while we were talking offline kind of a contingency surrounding dual inks.
Oh, yeah.
What's your thoughts on that?
So I think obviously Duel Links will get rotated out
Yeah.
with the next set of rotations. So with Attack of the Vine in set 13 is the next set of rotation. So obviously Duel Links are from set 7 and set 8, so that'll be part of the rotation, or the sets that are rotating out at that point for the course constructed metagame. I have to think at some point in the next 4 sets, so the last set of this rotation and then the next 3 sets of so Attack of the Vine 13, 14, and 15, whatever those end up being, that they're going to reprint or print new Duel Link cards. They're going to revisit that theme just to include those in the metagame and kind of tailor the decks and provide the power to those cards in combinations like they have done with the previous Duel Link cards. I mean, obviously Tramp and Lady in the Dogs decks are cornerstones and huge, powerful cards that get played in that. Known is an incredible Duel Link card that gets played. Are there any others that you'll... Giant Cobra, how can you forget about that? That is the premier reach tool.
The best.
In any purple steel list. I mean, that's what everybody has on their mind, and there's tech cards in the game, in metagame decks, specifically tailored to dealing with illusions, because 4/4 on 3 that gets 2 lore is just so incredibly efficient that you need to make it inefficient for the opponent in order to even have a chance in the game and not get snowballed out of that particular matchup. So I think they're going to reprint some Duel Link cards maybe, or at least print new Duel Link cards in the future to kind of revisit and keep that fresh part of the game incorporated. I'm interested to see how they get there through the narrative storyline, because obviously with Arcasia's Island and Reign of Jafar, there was this very thematic element to bringing the Duel Links in. The Illumineers reaching Arcasia's Island and meeting Arcasia themselves and learning about Duel Links and how to create Duel Link glimmers from them, and then Reign of Jafar, where Jafar takes over Arcasia's Island and kind of incorporates that into that set too. So I'm interested to see where they get with the narrative storyline to get to that point of reprinting or making new Duel Link cards. But I do think that with that happening, Colors of the Wind obviously becomes that incrementally better, because if a lot of Duel Links are being played, then we're getting more card draw off of it for free if you sing it. So it's effectively pay 0, draw 3, which is incredible. Right now it's probably pay 0, draw 1.5 on average, since purple is everywhere and it's hard to not play against a purple deck.
Yeah.
And those purple decks are like 60 to 70% purple amethyst cards. Have a lot of duplicates if you do play colors right now. But in the future, I do think as the metagame develops wider in this set and next set, and also then at rotation time when a lot of the card draw pieces are cut off from the amethyst ink color, then Colors of the Wind becomes that much better.
I kind of have a kind of tangential on this before we get into sealed. If they don't reprint Duel Links, would you consider that a failure on Ravensburger's part for trying to introduce this and then ultimately wiping it away? What are your thoughts on that?
To me, it would kind of feel sort of like what they did with locations for a while. They introduced locations. It was huge in, I think, Inklands, which is before my time.
Inklands is when they were first introduced, yes.
And
locations.
it felt like there was quite a few of them. There were like even enchanted locations, which didn't go over super well. Like
I pulled.
Nice.
naturally. And then they sort of tapered down from there, where I think by the time we got to like set 7 and 8, there were still some, but it was like less than 10 of the entire set was a location. They kind of went away from it. It seems like they're starting to make their way back a little bit, especially with this set. Cards with specific text on them that get location benefits. So I think that matters. So I guess it does show that there is a willingness to maybe ebb and flow with like, hey, here's a new thing. Let's see how it goes. I would hope what still feels like hasn't happened with Duel Inks is it was supposed to like embody like what those two inks together would be. Right, like Cobra is a great example of like what Purple Steel kind of, if those two inks were to come together kind of in a single card, that is a great example of it. And there's plenty more, but there does seem to be specific cards that are dual ink that feel very on brand. The Tramp card, that is a dual ink. The Lady card, that's a dual ink for Lemon Lime, Emerald, Amber. So it does feel like there were very specific choices that made a lot of sense, and them going away from it isn't necessarily like abandoning yet, but I do think that they need to show that that is still something that we care about, right? And I think like what a cool, as that some of those suggestions we talked about, right, where I think it was Curly Cards had talked about the subtext stuff, right, like detectives or franchise like decks, or just like using more synergy there versus just like here's a pile of really good Amethyst cards that have like no real thematic storyline synergy. Dual inks I think could do a lot of that too.
Yeah.
Right? And I hope that they go back to it. But yeah, it is weird that it hasn't been around now for multiple sets after being this big thing that people were kind of saying, I don't know if they're going to do it. It seems kind of early to introduce this. And then they did, and it was like, yeah, they're really cool.
Yeah, so I think one thing to remember is that for set 7 and set 8, they printed 0 locations. They replaced the locations they would have printed with some of the Duel Link cards because they didn't want to make this like 300 card set. They stopped printing locations for those sets and they printed Duel Links instead, or focused their efforts on the Duel Link pairings. So I think they'll probably find that rhythm again, where they'll print some locations for this set and the next set because they printed so many location relevant or location matters cards like Elsa's and Beasts and things like that. And then they'll go back. I think they'll rotate back into more Duel Link focused things and try to recreate those identities, what they want them to be. Obviously, we're seeing some of those ink color identities shift, and I think we should probably get Uncle Scrooge back on to talk about his premonition that he had in the past on the podcast before we get more in depth in that. But I do think that we're seeing some of those identity shifts, and that's one of the things that's been so fresh and so exciting about the Winterspell metagame so far, is that there are a ton of new, like, potentially viable ink color pairings, and obviously people forgot about Emerald Sapphire, but it's still really good. So if you were practiced on the Emerald Sapphire deck from the Whispers in the Well metagame set 10, then you're going to be just fine. You don't even need to add any cards, and that's the kind of point of the rotation that we're at right now, since that deck is just so good and so set in stone. Maybe you do add Let It Go, because it's just so easy to use that, but that in mind, I just feel like the metagame has been so like refreshing and so broad, and there's so many different ink color pairings, and Amber Ruby is like a very real control deck now. Amber Sapphire is like a very real control deck now.
That's good.
Amber basically just became like a very, very good color.
Yeah.
And Amethyst is always good. Sapphire gets you to the big Amber cards faster. And Amber Ruby is just this like really cool pet deck, I suppose, that has some really interesting synergies with like damage removal and coming into play on with damage, and the like threat that it produces is just incredible. When your opponent plays a 1-drop Mulan with 2 damage on it, and then on turn 2 they play the Reuben, and you still don't have any way to interact with that damaged Mulan, and then turn 3, if you turn anything sideways, they could heal or exert the Reuben, remove 2 damage, and then play the shift Mulan and just take over the game from there and just run away with it because you don't have any board left, which is just terrifying, especially if you're playing something like if you're on the play against that Amber Ruby deck and you're playing Blurple, for example, and you drop a Genie, but you also have like a Teeple that you decided to turn sideways because there was no way they're going to run the Mulan in. Well, now you just got cooked, and now you have no board, and you're way behind, and they have this massive character you have to deal with. So really interesting play lines with the new color combinations, and I think it'll be interesting to see what they do with how they've recreated some of the identities with future Duel Link cards. Because I still think that they're going to redo or do more Duel Link cards. Because you asked the question, was it a failure? And I think that it was, in my mind, it was a giant success, because it had this key impact on the metagame in the moment. It created this new deck with the Dogs deck that started in Arcasia's. And was just solidified through the past few sets. Yeah. And so I would consider it a success in that regard, and I think there's obviously some improvements with anything that anyone does to make it better and make it more impactful, but I think they had the impact, the cards had the impact that they were looking to have. Into the Unknown's been a 4 of since it came out pretty much for everybody, every deck. Maybe not in set 7 and set 8, but definitely with the turn of the rotation. So I do think that they'll find a way to bring more Duel Links into the game, and it'll be especially interesting to see how that fits into the Infinity format. way down the line. That's a whole other topic I don't think we have time to get into tonight. But any other thoughts on future?
I have one more, and
printings?
I think it's actually based on one of the things that you said, Ryan, about taking a critical eye on some of the cards that are coming out right now, and definitely the next set too, of these might not quite crack the 60 cards that you're going to play in this meta, but rotation is going to come, and like we're not going to give anyone like financial advice or like pick these cards because they're the best and that's value, right? But I think there might be something to that where, hey, if you picture all the cards that are likely leaving, where does that leave us? And you think about the hole that we were in during the Fabled meta, right? Like, that's partly why Whispers felt like just a blast of meta-relevant cards, because it truly was like, we're going to up the power level because now we're introducing 216, for the most part, net new cards that are, there's some really good ones there, but also for an entire set, we were playing cards that would have been considered really bad during Reign of Jafar, right? So I think that's a really good point about there being opportunity with kind of how this set is being viewed relative to the last one, and how a lot of cards aren't making their way into set 11 lists, where there could be some opportunity there for the future, assuming that you're going to be still playing the game in 6 to 9 months, which I know we all are very much playing that. So
pretty all in on this.
Yeah, so definitely some opportunity there, I think, to maybe take a critical eye on some cards that, hey, there could be that. I mean, I know I did for one card in particular that comes to my mind. I'm not telling anybody to get this card, but the Stitch Snowboarder seems like a really interesting card for Amber. I just like played around with it, felt like it was kind of good. It's not necessarily better than the Purple Hades if you're going to be playing Yurple, otherwise known as Amber Amethyst.
Coining it here. You heard it here first.
But like, it's just like an interesting, different type of card, and when other draw cards leave, that becomes, better by addition by subtraction, right? So I think that's an interesting way to look at it, and not one that I'd really considered for set 11, kind of being like, yeah, there's some top end cards, but kind of a lot of like medium cards.
Sure.
Yeah. Last thought I have about the discussion with rotation, because like we're one more set away until rotation.
That's crazy.
That's something that came across my mind, or at least I started thinking about it a little bit more over the course of the last week as we've started to see kind of the winter spell floodgate open. I think seeing it now, kind of in hindsight, right, when they introduced now moving forward, rotating every 4 sets, I think that's going to be perfect in the sense that, like, right now, as it stands, we are 3 new sets into the rotation. I don't feel oversaturated with cards right now. However, I can picture next set, kind of like how I felt with Reign of Jafar. At that point, I think we were just trying to get to rotation, or at least I was kind of halfway through Reign of Jafar. Like, I feel like these decks are established to a point you already made. Like, in a previous episode, like, nothing really changed in terms of meta relevance for when Reign of Jafar was introduced, because I think we reached that saturation point. And I can envision that happening next. Thankfully, again, they've planned it out well. Pixar's coming. But, like, I think we'll reach that point halfway through next set, and then we'll rotate out, and it'll feel like that breath of fresh air with Fabled, power level down, and then we'll increase again. I think 4 sets is a really good number to be at based on how many new cards they introduce per set, which is just over 200. Rotation, we'll see if they truly stick to, what was it? They reprinted what? 3/4 at least of Fabled was reprinted cards.
It might have even been over 80%.
I think there were only 33 new cards out of
There it
16.
is.
So if they stick to that same percentage, then like, or around the same percentage, like basically just over 3 new sets of cards per rotation. I think that's a really good number based on where we're at with the game, unless they for some reason increase deck sizes, which I don't envision that happening. For a 60 card deck, I think it feels really nice, and I think we'll just reach that level of saturation before we get rotated out. So I think we'll be in a good rhythm, and that's something I've noticed too over the last kind of couple weeks of winter spell. I haven't reached it yet, but I can envision it for next set.
One other thing I think that's weird about rotation too is depending on where you're at, like in that cycle, right? Like Fabled cards, you're going to be able to play for 2 years. But this upcoming set, you're only going to be able to play for about
16 months.
That's a pretty big difference. I mean, that's 33% less time, depending on where you're falling in like terms of. So I'm very curious to see how that impacts. I'm sure if they just print super good cards, it just doesn't really matter. People are like, well, that's really good, and I get to play it for a year, so that's enough time for me. Take my money, right? But I think it'll be really interesting to see how that is interpreted as well.
Yeah.
And also just with the looming rotation, some of the cards that will be presumed to be leaving, that people would assume are not going to get reprinted. Like the cards that come to my mind, right, are like Clarabelle or
Elsa.
Half Shark, Elsa, Genie. You know, what happens with kind of the perception of those cards over the course of, you know, now being February 24th through the next 3-4 months? Like, do people kind of like ignore those cards because they're like, well, those are for sure going away, and then maybe they don't.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of sure that at least those 2 purple ones are going to go bye-bye.
I can't foresee Elsa getting reprinted. I think it's been too much of a thorn in many people's sides, many players' sides, and I think that they would be hard pressed to find a way to put that in a future set as a reprint card. I think Ravensburger has come out previously saying they're not going to do as big of a reprint set ever again, like they did with Fabled.
Yeah.
That was kind of like a hard reset button. They were hitting just one time, and maybe they'll do much less of a reprint. But even then, 33 out of 204, 208, or whatever the final number is. Even if they only do 40 new cards, they have stuck to their word, and they have still met a giant number of reprints. We'll see what it looks like when Attack of the Vine comes, but it seems like it's thematic enough and newly thematic enough where it's still part of the narrative, so it feels like they're still going to push new cards through rather than having a reprint of everything. Since they also said that Fabled was like a pause, and it was just outside, like a side quest, rather than part of the actual storyline. So, yeah. Should we get into Sealed?
Let's do it.
Talk about Sealed.
Like you all mentioned earlier, I do want to just jump on the same bandwagon that it does feel like this is a well-curated set in terms of what the Sealed experience is. I felt like the first time we had our Sealed event, or we went to a Sealed event on pre-release night down at Kraken Hits, which was, again, a phenomenal event. Highly recommend if you're in the area and you're considering it, just go ahead and show up. It's a great time. I didn't really have a great game plan. I just wanted to play good cards. I took the good cards that I pulled and I put them into a deck and just said, let's go with this. Tonight I was opening my packs and I was looking at them thinking like, there are none of the cards that I want of like this giant high power level. I think I pulled a single 6-drop card, 6-cost card, and I was like, well, that does it. I'm gonna shift everything down, and so I ended up playing this interesting like locations based like aggro-ish thing. Just finding answers in some way. Ling, the 3-cost inkable 2/3 quest for 2 that has the ability that if you pay an ink, you can give a character +1 strength, and it's any character, and it's any amount of times you want to pay that much ink, or that 1 ink cost. And so I was able to like find answers to the evasive threats that were dropped on the board across from me. Through that and a number of other like multi-card combos, rather than just being like, hey, here's a lumpy, deal with it. I had to like get a little bit more creative with it. Unfortunately, it worked out for me, and I was able to find success with it still. Obviously, the goal is just to get to 21st, and I was able to craft a deck that was able to get to 21st more games than not, which was fun. It was fun to kind of find this different pathway through the sealed pool, even though it wasn't the powerful cards I was hoping to see, or I was looking forward to seeing. Still found some great synergies, great tools, and great play lines to kind of take advantage of some of the curated cards that Ravensburger put into the set to make things exciting and interesting, for sure.
What was your record tonight?
I think I lost 2 individual games, and so like maybe 4-2, 5-2. I don't know how many I played.
Yeah, mine was kind of weird how I went through opening my packs. I think when we opened the first 3 packs, I definitely had the best cards at that stage of us ripping.
Yeah.
Like,
regardless of epic and legendary, you definitely had the best like sealed pool through 3 packs.
I had I pulled the Tiana Epic, which is still a pretty good sealed card.
Great
4-cost card.
Super good.
I pulled a Mushu, the 5-cost uninkable, and then I pulled a Lumpy, and then 2 other 7-cost cards, but the 7-cost cards were
Space
fine.
Cows and Chimpo.
Yes. So I was looking at my first 3 packs. My top end was like basically set.
And you had ramp to get there. You had Grandmother Willow in that first pack too.
Grandmother Willow was, I think, the last card that I pulled from my last pack, or it was from my last pack, and so it felt once I saw that, I was like, okay, now I feel better about going in, because in the middle stages, I did not pull any of the, like, a good amount of those 4-cost uninkables that we talk about. I pulled 1 Yao and 1 Amos. And other than that, I didn't have any of those 4-cost uninkables, so the slushies, the Mauis did not exist. My card draw was a little iffy. I did get a strike a good match, which was helpful. And what was also nice, again, going back to my first 3 packs, I forgot I pulled a Let It Go. So that was nice. I had like my control of the board, but like that middle curve was kind of sketch. But then I opened the Grandmother Willow and I was like, okay. And then I opened 2 Rubens. So I was like, okay, maybe I can cheat out ink with these 2 Rubens and the Grandmother Willow, and that's ultimately what I tried to do. I mentioned I pulled the Donald Duck Legendary. I pulled no boost cards. So that immediately went off to the side, and that just felt bad, so I didn't end up using it. My 1 and 2 cost slots, by the end of that, I probably had 10 in each pile.
You had a very long stack of cards. You lined them up a little bit off of each other, so you're in like a descending stack. And it was the entire length of your playmat for both piles.
Yeah. So that's what ultimately happened. I didn't want to put too many of those low-cost cards in there. I put a lot of the top end in order to cheat out the ink with the 2 Rubens and the Grandmother Willow. I think that worked out well. I only played 4 games tonight, and I think I went 3-1. So ultimately, the deck performed well. But there was I definitely had to get creative with the cheating out of ink was the main thing for me. It worked out, but we had some good games. A lot of them went to the wire, I felt like, tonight. At least my matches did.
It's a fun part of Sealed, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we had a good time. And I think all of us did fairly well. We all, unfortunately, sorry, Scrooge, sorry, Connor, we all feasted on Connor. I think he was... But he had the Angel, which was great for him, but and then he had a Marching Off the Battle, which worked great with that Angel combination. But other than that, I think it was pretty difficult for him to, like, keep characters on the board. We had a lot more of that spot removal. All the rest of us had Let It Go's, I think.
I did not.
Okay.
3 of the 5, though, did, yeah.
So it was, overall, it went well. It's always a good time, though, with the sealed event.
Yeah, I remember I played you in the first round. I was like, I don't know about this, because I felt like I did pull some pretty good cards. Like I had 2 Amos Lee, or what it was, Amos Lee. That's the artist. Amos Slade. Thank you. Not Amos Lee, the artist. He's pretty great though. But like I had 2 of those to answer evasives. Like I had the Ohana for card draw. I got an Alice in there. So like I had like a little bit of everything I kind of wanted, and a lot of stuff in that like 4, 5, and then some like big 6 cost things too. So like I had the top end beef, but like some good stuff kind of in that middle area of the game to kind of hold down the board a little bit. But I didn't have anything that could go like particularly fast. There were cards that kind of surprised me. The 4 cost, is he a 4 cost Todd? Like that card is kind of crazy.
That card's great. Todd Playful Kit, 4 cost inkable, 2/4, quest for 2, and has a choice ability. When you quest, you can choose to either gain additional lore, one lore, or give something evasive till you start your next turn.
Which could be himself. So, I mean, that card's kind of crazy. You can do some really interesting stuff with that. So, but again, I think with what's so fun about Sealed is certain cards that just feel like they wouldn't do much. Maybe just throw it in there. Like, I was just looking for something that said, like, draw a card, and I threw in, like, a Nani's Payback. And I was playing our friend Evan, and he had this like blazing hot start with a bunch of aggro stuff, and it was like because Christopher Robin, he like nerfed my thing so I couldn't hit it the first time, and then he gave it evasives. Like he got the quest like so much right away, and I was like, he might just win from Christopher Robin.
Yeah. Great card, by the way.
And yeah, that card design's awesome, and I think the underdog thing is really cool, and like getting to see it showcased. Like we think about it, I think as a potential candidate for constructed decks, but even in Sealed 2, it's a really fun card. And like I got to play a Nani's Payback to like take 3 lore from him, draw a card, and like that ended up ultimately like mattering in the end. And it's just like a random card that I think I would never really think about. outside of that, and it's cool to see those have an impact. Another card that just like was kind of funny is I was like, I lose to Ryan, and I'm like, oh wait, I have Pocahontas, and I can get that last lore that I need by giving it something else.
That was a funny
Good card in the deck.
You were standing up, already picking up your card.
Yeah, I was like about
ready
to
to
be like,
scoop.
yeah, I think I probably just lost, right? And I'm like looking at these two cards, and Ryan's like, yeah, unless you have instant lore, and I'm like, I don't think I have that in this deck, and it was like, oh wait, one of the cards I'm holding is
The
instant
one card
lore.
that he needed.
So it just, super lucky, right? But, it's just funny to see, like, those cards have moments. So that's kind of fun, too. But, yeah, I definitely think I also took some learning from our first sealed night of the set. I think that's a huge benefit of playing multiple within a certain set, too, right? Like, we talked about learning from prior sets sealed some best practices, Don't get just a ton of 1 and 2 costs, right? You're going to get burned out from a resources perspective unless you have like crazy card draw. Which Ryan, I thought you did like a really elegant job of like consistently drawing cards. So even though you had a lot of these like not top end cards, you were at least laying down like 2 of them. So like that mattered for sure too, because you could just do more things each turn. Because you were also drawing and like getting the resource advantage piece in. That was really impressive. But like learning from prior stuff, but even learning like within this set, like, oh wow, that card cooked me last time, and now I open it in this sealed event, and it's like, I want to include that if I can, and it like fits what my deck's kind of trying to do. But I think even like having a plan too, right? With 72 cards, you can kind of have a plan, but it's going to be really hard with that small of a card pool to have any like very specific plan. So like Ryan in particular, I was really impressed with some of the cool things you were doing with locations and like making really hard choices. Like for me, once I got to this point in the game where I was like, I feel like both my decisions are wrong here. Like either do I like just quest? Do I try to take away one thing, but then kind of open up you to crack back? And it was really cool to see that very different type of deck, just based on you kind of drawing some kind of mid cards.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I never thought I would put 5 locations in one of my sealed decks, and I ended up playing 5 locations tonight. Which they ended up ink a lot of the time, so they did give me a decent amount of lore. Those locations are sneaky difficult to deal with, especially if you have some sort of like backup to them to say like, you either take my location and I get your character, or you let me get lore off this location and just let it be for a little bit until you like stabilize the board otherwise.
It's the willpower. They're higher willpower than I think we're used to with typical locations.
Yeah, that's 1 cost inkable Zootopia is
It's
5
great.
willpower, 1 lore. Like as your turn 1 played, what else? Like if you played a 0/5 that just gave you a lore every turn, everyone would play that in an instant for as a 1 cost inkable card. So that's effectively what it does. It just doesn't get to challenge back, which is a little unfortunate. But either way, it's just very difficult to deal with, especially that early in the game. You're getting at least 1 or 2 lore off of it for sure, and you're also then allowing yourself to have a favorable trade when your opponent has to deal with this that early in the game. So. Interesting to see that locations are relevant. I was a little bit down on them at our first sealed event. I thought, you know what, I don't have a choice this time. I got to go fast, so we got to find a way to go fast, and locations can help that race a little bit.
that's buff too, actually, because I think the precedent that had been set for a 1 cost,
Fairy
1
Ship.
pip was Fairy Ship, and that was from Azurite Sea, and that's a one cost 4 willpower. So that 1 extra matters a lot.
It does, yes. The game of Lorcana is a game of 1s and 2s addition, and 4 to 5 is a very big difference. Same as 3 to 4, and same as 2 to 3. Very big difference between those little levels. And I think we saw that in Mack's deck. And one card that I've been really surprised with that I was not high on early in the set, but now through some core constructed playing is Snowfort.
Oh gosh,
that changes math in a very mind-boggling way, where it hurts the brain a little bit to like try to keep it in mind as you're going through damage calculations on the board. And it's one of those gotcha cards that credit to a different podcast that I listened to. I forget who. I think maybe it was Jeremy Bartrioni, maybe from Club Lorcana, just said that. Oh no, it was Lorcana Decklist from the Articast. Said that the biggest nerf to the Snowfort card before it was even printed was the reprinting of the rules and the allowance of ample takebacks on a regular basis. Because Snowfort is one of those giant gotcha cards that you lay it on the field. It's really easy to forget about because it's an item and it's usually like somewhere off to the side. It's not usually like front and center. Even if it is front and center, you have to keep it in mind as a mental task as you're going through your damage calculation to see what you can and can't take out. And when the Snow Fort is giving both +1 strength and effectively +1 willpower through the resist mechanic or resist +1, I mean that's just super annoying to deal with. If you're playing a Snow Fort deck and you're playing against an aggro deck, there's a chance where the aggro deck can't actually challenge into you ever because they only have 1 strength characters on the field.
Yeah.
And that's just really annoying to deal with. It also makes Elsa much less effective. It's only swinging for 1 as a rush, which is not enough to clear really anything. And so it's really interesting to see that card have such a big impact. And even in Sealed, I think it came out on the field a couple of times. What was your experience with it tonight? And did you think it was as good as we've seen it be in some constructed decks, or was it just underwhelming?
I played it once in the one game against Nathaniel, and I think that, talking about changing the math, at that point in the game, we were pretty even. I might even have been at a disadvantage, just the way that the board state was shaking out. But once that Snow Fort came out, I could tell like all calculations changed, and it just universally, inherently buffed everything that was on the board, where previously my board state was not kind of up to par to where you were at. And ultimately, I think that's what helped me get back into the game. Was that Let It Go helped? I remember one of your big characters.
What a great card! Great card.
But once you get even that I say that jokingly, but once I took the whatever character out with the Let It Go, your board with the Snow Fort is like significantly like disproportionate to what mine was at that point. So yeah, it worked very well. What's interesting about my deck, don't listen to, I guess, my advice from 2 weeks ago, because I had 9 uninkables. And this is something that I kind of was adamant to only put 6. 6 or less is what I wanted before. And granted, I will say that, again, I was trying to cheat out ink with the Rubens and the Grandmother Willows, but I was putting my cards together when I was putting my deck, and I was like, yeah, I should probably do an inkable check. I was at 9, and because at that point I was considering another one, and I was like, nah, I'm not going to have a quarter of my deck be on inkables. But Snow Fort, as soon as I saw that went in my uninkable yes pile. Like, it had to be there, knowing what I experienced and talking with others around the community, as well as what we saw at Kraken Hits a couple weeks ago. That's a very pivotal deck, and you actually played against it. I think that's what convinced me at that first night of Sealed. You played against Snow Fort, and you had to go through all the math, and I saw the stress because you were the last match on that specific round, and everyone, or at least I was, kind of huddled around to see what was going, and you were just, it looked like your brain hurt, and now I can understand why Snow Fort is kind of that, another, speaking to sneaky cards that'll be good, not only in Sealed, we're seeing it in Dogs, or just a lot of Emerald decks are at least trying it out right now. And I think it's got a lot of viability. Kind of these uninkable Emerald cards, items specifically, with the Emerald Chromacon. Those are pretty big. And to your point, Nathaniel, Emerald being that weird color, there's just another one that you have to deal with that in color.
Yeah, and like I think we've heard this term kind of brought up before, right? Where if you're spending ink to not play a character, it's considered this, like, you know, what's it, like D-tempo, or it's like
tempo loss
to like not play a character on your turn. That is a particular card where I think in any matchup that feels a little bit slower, if it's not just like we're slamming down characters every single turn, if it's like, you know, if like, I think oftentimes we'll see purple decks, particularly like I've seen Blurple do this before, where they're gonna like basically take an entire turn to like replenish their hand, right? Like maybe it's Second Star is not a good example because you're just gonna sing that, but like maybe they're gonna like play a guidebook, pop the guidebook, and maybe they like lay another one down because they don't need to play a character that turn, they just need to like replenish resources, and like they can get away with that. Well, if one of your turns is to like play this thing that now makes the math really terrible for your opponent, and then later there's a turn where you can like lay a second one down, like that feels like a lock on the game, right? Like if you have everything buffed, everything buffed +2 strength, and then whenever they want to swing into you, all your stuff keeps that strength buff and gets resist +2. It feels so insurmountable, other than like very specific decks that can like do certain board wipe things. It in sealed it feels incredible. Like when that player played it against me at the sealed event, I was like, this is gonna be really bad for me, and it was. It made the game take way longer than I think I would have probably won a lot more quickly had that not been on the field because it really changed things.
And I think Ryan, you were the only one that pulled that item hate card. Yes, the Donald.
Two of them, actually. 2 5-cost Donalds, and I had such bad top end that I included both in my deck. It's usually not something I would think about, but now that knowing Snowfort's so much better, and just knowing that there's some like low cost items that some people are playing because turn 1 is kind of like meh. Tiny Tim's Crutch being one of those. Great support item for a 1-cost play, so that's something to keep in mind. It's also inkable, so if you draw it later in the game, like, okay, whatever, I just don't need it right now, I'll just ink it.
Use as your angel 2 damage.
Yeah, there you go.
Throw the cane.
Like the other Crutch is something to deal 2 damage. Gosh, I love the way this game lines up. Yeah, so I actually had 2 of the 5-cost inkable 4/6 Quest for 2 Donald Ducks. I don't remember what the subtext is there. But when you play it, you may banish chosen item. It's basically like Benja, but 5-cost.
Yeah.
And I saw Mack play it because he was sitting next to me for his first game. I saw him play Snowfort, and I thought, that is really bad for me if that comes out. So I saw it in my opening hand. I said, this is one that I need to keep just in case I see a Snowfort, because then I can just leave everything standing. And then when I deal with the Snowfort, then I can start turning sideways. Hopefully I'm not too far behind at that point. Yeah. It also makes it easier to deal with locations, and it makes it easier to deal with everything that happens in the game. So I knew I needed to get rid of it, and I think it was like turn 6 or 7 that I was like, finally I'm going to ink this card that I'm now inking up to 5 to play something else that I need to play. And I haven't seen Snowfort yet, so if it comes out now, then like whatever, I guess I lose, but maybe I can find the other one. Yeah, so I would think I was the only person that had any type of item hate in the deck at all. I don't think anyone else has had any way of dealing with items other than Tigger, which would have bounced to 2-cost or less. Snowfort dodges that by being 3 costs. It would be the only other option I can think of. That
I love that card. I don't know if it's even that amazing in sealed, but it's just fun.
It's just so fun.
It's just fun to bounce back their Willow or whatever. When you're on the play, you bounce back one of their things, and all of a sudden the board state looks like kind of lopsided, but they have a way of catching up because sealed is kind of slow. So
yeah.
I think if Tigger had quested for 2, it would be incredible.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. So overall, I think, and with the Snowfort too, I think moving more into a constructive lens, and talking about item removal, items aren't as prevalent as the Hiram days, right? Or the Tamatoa, which is still viable. It's still within the set. It still exists. But I was watching, I don't know, some online play the other day, and I saw this blue-green, this emerald sapphire items list utilizing the Snowfort and utilizing, I think, one of the new items where you put a damage on it, and then you can, with the Merlin's carpet bag, so you can banish it to give someone reckless, then you retrieve it again with the Merlin's carpet bag, and you play it again, and you put another damage, and then ultimately you utilize it with the Prince Philip combo. I was like, geez, over this, that was something that shocked me in the sense that, like, I almost thought items kind of feel dead in the water. Last set, it was what is it? Not the Inkcaster. What am I thinking of?
Yeah, the Inkcaster and the Amethyst Chromacon for the purple green burn deck, and there was Emerald Chromacon for the dogs deck. Was there any other items? I mean, those are 2 pretty prevalent. Guidebooks. If the guidebooks are just sitting there and your opponent is just not having an opportunity to crack it or doesn't want to crack it yet, they're waiting for a Demona turn where they can then draw 5 off the Demona turn if they have an empty hand on the Demona. So just things like that where, like, if your opponent's getting greedy, then you can banish it. I think the only deck that naturally runs item removal is Emerald decks that are running the Clarabelle Shift line, because the 1-drop is a natural item removal there. But otherwise, I think there was definitely some necessity to tech in item removal cards towards the end of the set to maintain competitiveness.
So I think this set has only increased the viability of, like, those sneaky items where we started to see it towards the tail end of last set, especially with Lantern, the reprinted Lantern.
Lantern. How did you forget about that?
The Amethyst Amber deck, the Monstro deck combo, like, that one I think was the deck last set that really came into the fold towards the tail end of the set. I'm curious to see, I mean, it's already strong now, but, like, what's that deck going to be for this set? but I suspect it could be something utilizing a snow fort or these weird items that on face value might not seem great, but then as you get more repetitions with it, oh, these items start to feel bad and aren't as simple as a popsicle in the days of old, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think it is really fun to see cards surprise you too.
Yeah.
The card in particular that has been really surprising me in terms of just how good it is. Maybe not necessarily in sealed, but the 4-cost steel legendary angel. On paper, it seems like it'd be like a goodish card, and it's legendary. That's neat.
Yeah, you're losing a card
But like
for its effect, right?
it really does a lot of very painful and annoying things, and I think if you can, in some of these decks where they can kind of afford to burn out resources, I think about purple steel with like lots of natural card draw or like ways to like bounce your dock back, or if you get, we used to think about as purple steel players, if you had like Cobra and 2 docks, right? You could just play Cobra, discard one of the docks because it's worth more as 2 lore for you at that point, and then the next turn or whatever, or with the remainder of your ink, you play the other dock, right? This is just another way to like clean up some of those ickier hands where it's like the 2 damage could just do so much more for you, and if you're trying to burn down your hand anyways, that's amazing. And I think seeing how that card gets played around or leveraged with different types of resources, I think will be really interesting over the course of the set, because that's one where I think people just need to see it in action to start understanding like, actually that card's super good, and the sooner you answer it the better. Because I think unless you're playing like a really big like beefy deck that like doesn't really care about 2 damage, then you're probably fine. But a lot of times that extra 2 damage can be really impactful, and if all you're doing is like discarding some late game 1 cost, it feels great to do that with Angel's effect, and the fact that she gets resist when your hand's empty is also super nice.
Yeah.
There was a point in the sealed event at Kraken Hits that I had an Angel on the field, so I happened to pull one of my packs, and then I was actually facing against a player that had a different Angel on the field, and that standoff when no one has any cards in their hand is very awkward. You play your turn, you have a card in your hand, your Angel does not have resist because you have a card in your hand. The opponent's Angel has resist +2, so your Angel effect is null and void. You can't run into it. You can't use your effect on it. There's no way to get rid of it unless you have a snow fort and some other like strong character on the field to like force exert it. So like it gets awkward really fast, and that standoff is just like I thought of it like an old Western showdown where they were just like taking paces and then everyone was shooting like stormtroopers and no one could actually hit anything. that's what went through my mind during the sealed event, and that's probably why I lost that game. But because I was a little distracted. But anyways, that Angel card is going to be really impactful, because there are some, obviously any aggro deck kind of needs to deal with it immediately, otherwise it just starts picking off multiple. They start losing multiple characters per turn to it, and that's when an aggro deck usually runs out of steam, is when they're losing multiple characters per turn because they can't replenish fast enough to get the lore that they need. So it'll be interesting to see where that card goes in the meta, because I think it'll be a staple, but I think it's also one of those things that, to your point, that once people get used to playing against it, how impactful is it really going to be at that point? Because it doesn't, like 2 damage is something, but card is also important to have in a lot of these like grindy matchups where Angel becomes really, really good, because you keep accumulating damage over time, and once the Angel deals like 6 or 8 damage off of its effects and discarding cards you don't need, that's when it starts to feel really impactful. But if people are getting used to it and removing it immediately, then it's just a 4-cost do nothing that you just wasted your turn for, and lost huge tempo to, because it doesn't have resist on the turn you play it.
That card feels like, though, too, like, besides, sure, you're able to discard a card the turn you play it, but then it's a net loss of 2 cards on that turn, right?
Right.
And I think that's just another example of Ravensburger's direction of no more like instant on-play effects. I think it seems like they're really getting away of that. Started with Hiram, right? Play it, banish, draw 2. The goats, the rabbits, like that instant gain on play. It seems like they're moving away from that. And Angel, yes, you can do that. You can get that instant gain, but you get another loss in card advantage. So it feels a little bit more balanced that way. Now, if you're able to chain it with a dock, or if you have a Goliath on board and you're just replenishing your hand just to get rid of, or any sort of amethyst card, right? It's that's where I think Ravensburger wants this game to go, is with these certain higher, like these greedier cards truly taking in effect the longer it is on the board. That's where Angel is another, I feel like, an example of that. Kudos to Connor again. I mean, he utilized it really well, and he was able to banish one of my characters, and it felt like almost every time he had the marching off to battle to sing with it, which felt great for him. So, like, there are some nice, like, synergies there, but getting away from that instant gratification in terms of those on-play effects, I think will balance and has balanced the game out very well, and Angel's another example of that with that high power.
I would contend a little bit, because in the last set there were 2 cards in particular, as Amethyst players, I think we are biased, that did have on-play effects, and they showed to be so powerful, partly because they had the on-play effect, right? Demona and Hades from last set.
No.
Just, like, meta-warping cards, because they did so much when the card came down. And that's part of the thing that I was comparing so much with this 5-cost slot. If you're running an Amber Amethyst deck, I'm going to stop saying Yurple. But if you're running that color combination, right, you have all these great cards at 5 cost. And one of the cards that I was comparing is the new, it's a really fun card, the Snowboarder Stitch, which when it quests, if you have another character or 2 characters, you get to draw a card.
Yep.
Versus Hades comes down and, like, on play, makes them make a decision. There's some decision fatigue there, Ryan. I think you've talked about this before, where, like, that's really hard as the opponent, especially if they keep doing that to you. But, like, on play, it's like removal or draw 2, where, like, depending on if you're trying to play into, like, a Demona, is that really the best thing? Because they'll just be like, oh, draw 2, because I know you probably have a Demona sitting back there, and now that becomes less crippling for me.
Yep. Or I have a Demona.
Yeah, or I have a Demona.
And
right,
I'm just going to clear that Hades next turn anyways.
Right. So it's, like, versus the Stitch, in a way, you can kind of play into the Demona better, because you would just play that on 5, burn your hand out, play the Demona, and then quest, get your card off of Stitch. So I think there's different ways to think about it like that, but again, it feels in some ways worse because it does have to stick for a turn versus getting that instant, I slam it down and it does something immediately, and that's I think partly why people don't like Elsa Fifth Spirit, because it does something, it does like multiple things the moment it comes down. So it just feels so incredible.
More fodder for the Amethyst problem. They're just feeding it.
There's no problem with Amethyst. It's just a very consistent color that is very good at the game.
Mm-hmm.
We love it.
We love it.
And all of its variations, don't we?
Aren't you guys happy you invested in all those Amethyst legendaries at post-rotation? Am I right?
They're cheaper now. You can still get in.
I love Sapphire too much, I think.
There's a deck called Blurple for you.
But then I didn't invest early, so now I'd have to do a lot of catch-up for that.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Dumbos. Namely Dumbos.
Yep, and Demona.
Well, just go find some Fabled Sealed product. It'll be fine there, right?
Oh,
That's
yes.
cheap.
Yeah, it's cheap now, right?
Yeah.
It's definitely not inflated.
Nope. All right, well, I think we've had a great conversation.
Yeah.
I don't have anything else to add. I think we'll have plenty more conversations in the future, so should we wrap?
Yeah, you can find us, the DuckTale Dads, on Instagram, as well as multiple podcasting sites, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify, as well as our video and audio posting to YouTube. Good luck to anybody who's playing this weekend. We've got a couple of locals kind of going to, I think, Inc. out on the East Coast. That's super exciting. Excited to kind of follow that. But otherwise, gentlemen, let's get the duck out of here.
Let's do it.